Ready? Oh, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Amazon editorial review states, as a highly influential and widely admired singer, proto-rapper, jazz pianist, poet, novelist, and socio-political commentator, Gil Scott-Heron remains a unique and major figure in global music. With more than 20 albums to his name, his politically charged output has won him an international following. According to the United Kingdom's news publication, The Telegraph, Scott-Heron, who died on May 27, 2011, aged 62, provided a vivid and often stinging commentary on social injustice and the Black American experience. His declamatory singing style, allied to the overtly political content of his work, made him widely recognized as one of the inspirational figures of rap music. Scott-Heron refined an intoxicating hybrid of jazz, Latin, and Afro idioms that established him in the vanguard of Black American music in the 1970s and beyond. On this edition of Rhythm United, I take a journey back in time with one of Gil's friends and fellow musician mates, woodwind extraordinary for the Midnight Band, Bilal Sunni Ali, who shares the mission, the vision, and the intent of working, living, and revolting with Gil Scott-Heron.
You see that black boy over there running scared, his old man in a bottle. He done quit his 9 to 5, he drink full time, and now he's living in a bottle.
Greetings, family. How you doing? It's your brother, DJ Fourth World. And definitely a pleasure to be here with you, giving you a very, very entertaining, enlightening, inspiring interview with a gentleman who I am definitely one who, considering myself a student, shall we say, I'm revealing to him this evening, he probably never knew it, that I'm actually an alto sax player. And, hadn't picked that thing up in quite a long time. But one who definitely, knows the sound, knows the style, knows the spirit that goes into playing a saxophone, no matter what type it may be. And this individual who I'm getting ready to speak with is actually someone who is definitely well seasoned at that instrument. So much so that he is one of the members of Gil Scott-Heron's troupe, that being the Midnight Band. And this brother is one who definitely has put in much work to define the sound of not only just that instrument, but also the accompanying musicians who created the sound that we've all become so familiar with by hearing Gil Scott-Heron. That gentleman being none other than Baba Bilal Sunni Ali. So I'd like to welcome him and just introduce him, shall we say, to those who don't know. So Baba Bilal, how are you doing this evening?
I'm very well, thank you, and thank you for being in communication with listeners. And I hope I can shed some light on things maybe that some light needs to be shed on.
Well, for those that are, once again, maybe kind of novices to the sound that Gil Scott-Heron and the Midnight Band created, and we'll just say Gil Scott-Heron because we know that he brought in a lot of musicians in many different forms, but you being a part of Midnight Band is why I bring that particular band up. But the discussion is to try and make sure that we give as much validity and authenticity to just that period in time and moving into where we are now with who this man was, who he surrounded himself by, and what became of that. And so with that being said, I'd be remiss not to just kind of first start off with talking about your life and who you were as an individual prior to linking up with Brother Gil Scott Heron. So, give us maybe just a kind of abbreviated background on how you got into being the sax player that we all know you are now in this day and time.
Yeah, well, life was very short before hooking up with Gil Scott Heron, because I guess I was about 13 when that occurred. He came from Tennessee. We got to know each other much better later on. Some of the brothers that I went to college with at Bronx Community College in the Bronx went to Lincoln University, and they were engaged with him there. He was part of a group. He was a writer, songwriter. Him and his partner Brian Jackson, they were songwriters for a group that was there at Lincoln University called Black and Blues. Mm-hmm. And Black and Blues, some of the members of Black and Blues were on that first album, Small Talk on 125th Street. That was his first recording, as well as his first volume of poetry that was published. And that was around 1970 or 71 when that was going on. And at the time I was at Soledad, California, California State Prison, which was an institute of higher learning, depending on what you were learning. So I was, they had wrote me and told me about Gil. I mean, I didn't know Gil very well when we were younger, but I could never forget that name. So I knew this was the same guy that was writing detective stories, was now doing poetry and doing songs. So they were saying that they heard me. And when they heard him, they could hear my horn along with it. So we tried it out. When I came back to New York, Gil invited me to come sit in with them. So I came and sat in with the band a few times, and Gil told me to come back. So I came back, and I became part of the Midnight Band, just as the Midnight Band was forming. Because when I joined the group, it didn't really have a name. Okay. But the Midnight Band formed during that first year that I was part of the band. And he had a contract with Flying Dutchman, and that's how he produced the first few albums he produced. First Minute of a New Day, and then Pieces of a Man and Free Will. He had produced them on the Flying Dutchman label. And then he switched to a black label, which was Strata East. And when he pre-produced, him and Brian Jackson produced the album Winter in America, which had the song The Bottle on it, which became a big commercial hit. And his main commercial hit and his biggest commercial hit. And I'd say for a band like us, for the type of band that we were and the type of music that we played and the type of activities that we engaged in the community, it was the biggest commercial hit. It was the biggest commercial hit for a band of our nature.
I said I believe my folks gon' get themselves together and walk a stronger mile. Trying to get some place in the human race, so how we need to see our lady smile. I said I believe, do you believe like I believe? Brothers are gonna walk a stronger mile. brother Guerilla. Story about this brother. Heard he was more than 100 years old. Beat up and robbed by friends ahead. So he thought, which proves this world can still be cold. But even old men thought a sunshine tree stand a little bit taller today, and you can hear the whisper from the seaside breeze. This is what you say, Possum Slim. Don't you mess with him. Yeah.
Going back, let's say, to those times when you all had reconnected, you know, first and foremost, how much did you all kind of reminisce, you know, in piecing together that relationship that, even though, like you said, it wasn't a very comprehensive relationship as children, but, you know, as meeting back up now as men, you know, how much of you all's past kind of played into the development of, you know, what you all were going to discuss, the content, the topics, all of that?
Everything, like I said, there was a brother, Tony Duncanson, who was also part of the band. And even though me and Tony, we lived close to each other.
You two were closer than once.
Yeah, we lived in the same neighborhood.
Gotcha.
Gil lived downtown, but in the same type of neighborhood. We lived in the North Bronx, and where he had gone to school up there. But when he went to private school for a while, then he went to DeWitt Clinton High School. And while he was doing that, he was living in the Chelsea area, which was, I'd say the neighborhood, his neighborhood was about half black and half Puerto Rican.
Okay.
You know, and not that the Puerto Ricans weren't black. Just using that as a national definition of, you know, it's like half Latino people. But when we were growing up, the music was all the same. Because I noticed that we played Latin music. Me and Tony, we played Latin music, and that's what. And so we were popular. So I mean, when we reminisced, it was more. Ironically, it was more Gil telling us how he remembered us more than us remembering him.
Okay.
Because I said they isolated him, they separated him from those that would have naturally been his peers, you know, but have been his peers intellectually and artistically. They separated him from that in the school system. But we were in playing that music, that Latin music. I guess the Alegre All-Stars, which Alegre was bought by Fania, they became known as the Fania All-Stars. But when we were growing up, the Alegre All-Stars and the Fania All-Stars, they were like our big brothers, you know, like Charlie Palmieri and Eddie Palmieri. They lived in the same neighborhood with some of the band members, you know, that we had when we were in junior high school. Lived in there, and the nighttime in our neighborhood and their neighborhood, and then also the Gil's neighborhood, it's much less described on the. It was an album we did called "It's Your World," and there's a song on there called 17th Street, which is a composite song. It was written by all of us together, and we actually composed that song by just coming out with what we felt right at the time, and the words just started coming together. But we were just playing what we was feeling from what we were remembering. And if you heard that tune, you would know like exactly what I'm talking about.
Interesting. Yeah. So now in the growing up, shall we say, of you all from, I guess boys to men, what really then became the mission? Because, I asked the first question only because I myself having the opportunity to play instruments, it's like you come from this real place of innocence where just like you just deal with basic stuff. But then as you grow older, you start to say, okay, well now I really have like a tool, and some people even would say I have a responsibility.
Right.
When did that stage hit for you all, and what was it that really made you all say, okay, like, you know what, we have the ability to speak to the people?
It hit for me and Tony. Like I said, we played Latin music, but in playing the Latin music, particularly for playing the Afro-Cuban music, we got directly involved with African music. And getting involved with Afro-Cuban music, we got directly involved with African tradition and African religion. So we were, we were going, that's the direction. We were already set in with a particular worldview, which was different from the average, say the average 15 or 16-year-old, even 18 and 19-year-old. Because of our understanding of Ifa religion as it was practiced, as we began to understand it through the music. Tony being a conga player and being associated with the congueros, the more congueros we met, the more we learned about traditional religion. And at that time, it was the first time that temples were forming, temples of traditional religion that, say, New Africans were doing. It wasn't, because most of them had been led by Cubans, or most of them had been led by Cubans, some Panamanians, some Puerto Ricans, but primarily the spiritual houses out of Cuba were leading exponents of the culture, of the African culture. But then it began a thing where New Africans began to do it themselves, and that became the cultural thrust within the community. So at that point we were talking about cultural revolution amongst our people. And so we were already engulfed in that, and I'm talking about the early and mid '60s, which was also the time of the Vietnam War. So it all went together, learning about traditional religion, developing commitment to traditional religion, and opposing the war. Opposing U.S. foreign policy, opposing U.S. domestic foreign policy, because we were rooted in a whole nother worldview than many of our peers. So that became our direction. So as the more we developed in the music, the more we developed in developing music that continued us in that same direction.
And I have to ask, and you already began to kind of move into it, your peers, your elders, your parents, what were they thinking, seeing you all come with this, worldview?
Well, the worldview was partially from my parents.
Okay.
I know there were a lot of people during the period of cultural revolution who actually had to break from their parents, But my parents encouraged it. My parents encouraged it and pushed me toward it. I'm very fortunate, that my parents studied revolution and accepted revolution. We were at a very early age. Not me personally, I was involved in the Garvey movement. My uncle was Stanley A. Davis, who was the head of the project over in Liberia.
Okay.
So this was part of my upbringing. This was part of my upbringing too. So it's and the same with Tony. Tony. His parents were into Garveyism as well. So as we begin, so that's why we were on that same track together. We were playing clarinet in the school orchestra, but outside of that, we were playing flute and he played congas, and we were off in a whole nother world.
Heard me a story about this brother at the time, 105 years old, done time, beat up and robbed by friends of his, which proves his world can still be cold. Yeah, but now they got Slim in a Florida jail, waiting to go on trial. The son knows Slim for 100 years. The son can't help but smile and say, Possum Slim is all right with me. So don't you mess with him. Snap time. My man, my man, my man. Don't you mess with my man. Wait a minute. My man, my man, my man, my man. Don't you mess with my man. Said, oh, people power, no. It's the thing for the day. Oh, people power, Possum Slim leading the way. Possum Slim. Don't you mess with him.
Tuskegee 626. Somebody done got slick. When deadly germs are taking turns, seeing what makes us tick. Tuskegee 626. Scientists getting their kicks. When deadly disease can do what it please, results ain't hard to predict. Tuskegee 626. Pushed aside mighty quick. The brothers you dig are guinea pigs for vicious experiments. It stands out on the highway like a creature from another time. It inspires the baby's questions. What's that? For their mothers as they rhyme. But no one stopped to think about the babies or how they would survive. And we were almost lost Detroit this time.
type of, I mean, I guess it would be obvious what the conversations would be about that you all were having, but I mean,
in the band?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, but at the same time, I mean, kind of bring the listeners into a night with you all. I mean, what was going on?
It was, for one thing, it was music. We were all studying music from different areas, because even though all this was a lot of our background, right then, say like the mid to the late 60s, it was really a revolutionary period. John Coltrane was setting the pace, had set the pace. He had left us in 67.
Right.
But he had set the pace in terms of people studying and appreciating different religions and different religious philosophies and different ways of life.
Right.
And associating that with the music. We began to be called Miscellaneous. You can find us.
That was the category.
Yeah. You would go in a record store.
So that was before they got to world music.
Right, yeah. They didn't have a section called world music then. They just had, R&B, jazz, Latin, and miscellaneous. So we played jazz, we played Latin, we played R&B, but then we played a lot of other stuff since we were studied in the traditions. We played a lot of traditional rhythms that weren't the popular rhythms, as a lot of bands were into playing, the popular music, when they play Latin music, playing cha-chas or some variation of cha-cha or mambo, but they wouldn't get into the rhythm. Like, for instance, we did a song I wrote called Western Sunrise. And on the song, the percussionists, they didn't play bata drums, but they used the bata rhythm.
Right, okay.
They used the bata rhythm on that song.
On what drums, if you don't mind me asking?
On congas.
On congas, okay, interesting.
Yeah. They played congas, 2 conga players, and a djembe player. Yeah, that's and played that bata rhythm, and people who didn't notice it just accepted that it was like 3/4, it was a jazz rhythm 3/4, with an African feeling to it, but people who knew that it was precise rhythm. It was precise rhythm that we had studied, and we were applying it to playing the music that we played. We would try to apply the proper rhythm to the content of the song, the whole spirit of the song.
Very interesting, very interesting. If you're just joining us, you're hearing the voice of the one and only Baba Bilal, Sunni Ali, and I feel like you were getting ready to add some more points to that.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that we had we would often talk about the fact that we listened to everybody else, to all of the pop, because that was the era of black bands. Donald Byrd had a group he was teaching at Howard University at the time, because we were based in Washington, D.C., and our booking agency was based in Washington, D.C. Dr. Donald Byrd was teaching at Howard University, and he eventually formed a group of his students into a band called the Blackbirds.
Okay.
And so they were like our contemporaries, and another one was Earth, Wind, and Fire. I was just mentioning to somebody else the other day how I can remember when we were coming up. I remember we played, that was Midnight Band, and Earth, Wind, and Fire played at a college homecoming up in Rhode Island, This was maybe around 1972 or 1973, and there were about 35 people in the audience. I mean, it was a big difference a few years later with both of us.
Yes.
But that, but that was another band, Brass Construction, Ohio Players, and another one, Ohio Hustlers. They didn't get as much play as the Ohio Players, but they were just as good,
just as funky,
in terms of players. There was Mandrill. There was the Headhunters, which was with
Herbie.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was Bill Summers led the group, the Headhunters, but they were on tour. They toured with Herbie. And they're, interesting enough, they're back together again on tour.
That's right.
In fact, they were in New Orleans the last time I was there.
Was Bill playing with them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Bill was playing with them, and that's one of the people we're talking to about doing a midnight band reunion, and a reunion of some of the people that we toured with, who are now, some of the people that we toured with are now back on the road, back touring again, and have reunited. So, that's some of the possibilities that we're looking to in the near future, of reuniting with some of those bands that we worked with, with the Headhunters, or with Herbie Hancock himself, or with Weather Report, with Earth, Wind and Fire, with Roy Ayers. All of these groups were part of a roster of a booking agency we had in Washington, D.C. called Charisma Productions. And also during that time, one of the members of the agency, Tommy Abney, became our road manager, which was very significant because Tommy Abney, he's the only person that I know of, I'm sure there's more of them, but he's the only one that I personally know who has a degree in community organizing. So when we would hit the road, this is another part of answering your question, what would a night hanging with the Midnight Band be like? A lot of times we would, when we would go on the road, we'd come in town to do a concert, and we would have a reception somewhere in the community, either at a community center, or sometimes over somebody's house, in somebody's backyard, and we would, and they would cook, and they would invite people from the community, and we would, just hang out with them and talk to them and talk about different things they're doing in the community.
And why was that essential? I mean, because it is what it is. You all, as you mentioned, by that time went from 35 people to, I'm sure, 3,500 to maybe even 35,000. Why was it so essential to still keep that connection?
Because that's the type of music that we were playing. We were playing music. A lot of people were playing real funky music. I mean, music that the black community really enjoyed. But we were different in that we not only played the music and the sounds that they liked, but we added, through Gil and Brian's lyrics, and other of us who wrote lyrics too, but chiefly through Gil's lyrics and Brian's lyrics, we were dealing with the aspirations of the black community. So we would go play out of school because we were concerned about building black school and building a network of black schools. We were concerned about connecting people as we go from town to town and we meet people that work in an independent black school. We would make sure that they know the people in the town that we just left who are working with independent black schools, or people that's working with community control. We would make sure that their counterparts in other communities would know each other, and that this was, it was a part of organizing for liberation. So this is what we needed to do. So we weren't just having those receptions to build a big fan base or to build a big base of people who would buy our records in every community.
Right.
Because at the time we didn't really know the full significance of record sales.
Okay.
We knew the one thing about records, why we were into making records, was because we know that a lot of our people didn't read books. We were college students, and we knew a lot of college students didn't read books.
Interesting.
So we knew the rest of the community. You know, if the college students ain't reading books, then don't expect the brothers on the corner to be reading books.
Interesting.
So we knew that everybody listened to music, and everybody bought albums and liner notes, album covers, and liner notes were that was the culture of the day. You know, what an album cover looked like, what it said on it, you know, the message it gave, you know, through the artwork on the album cover, and then the songs that would, you know, the names of the songs. And then what we would do, we wouldn't have that much liner notes. We would have the lyrics, because just about all of our songs had lyrics to them.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have the lyrics to all of the songs as the liner notes.
Okay.
In most of the albums that we produced. So that was the you know, that's what we were doing. We were an instrument of the revolution, of our people's national liberation struggle at that time.
And what you're saying is that it was a conscious decision. And you know what I've also heard you say is that y'all were delivering, shall we say, in sonic form, the message that people were aspiring to see come into fruition.
Just 30 miles from Detroit stands a giant power station. It ticks each night as the city sleeps. The seconds from annihilation. But no one stopped to think about the people, or how they would survive. And we almost lost Detroit this time. How would we ever get over losing our mind?
Did we get from that being the aspirations that people were wanting to hear on a record to, you know, where we're at today, to where the aspirations are similar but less self-sufficient, less sustainable? You know, it's like people are wanting to see themselves thrive and grow beyond their condition, yet you all, like you said, are talking about building schools. In the case of, you know, what we're seeing now with music, cats is really talking about, hey, skipping school and just going straight to play ball somewhere, you know what I mean, and getting $1 million. I mean, you know, why do you think that, and I know that's one of those kind of cliche questions, but at least speaking from the stance of you all deliberately making these choices, how do you feel that we got to that point?
Yeah, well, I'd say it's at the point that we were at, and the point that a lot of other artists were at. A lot of artists were consciously there. I'd say for sure that Curtis Mayfield, I mean, his decision was deliberate. So I said a number of us, we made a deliberate decision. But the reason most of the music was headed in a more radical fashion was because they were influenced. They were influenced by the activities of the time. Mm-hmm. So minus the activity, you kind of have minus the formula to build and the sound around. So those people who are still dedicated to that, who was dedicated to that whether there was activity or not, still dedicated to that. Going, right. And those who are not dedicated to that kept the music going. Mm-hmm. And there was even within the band, as different people began to, as the band began to evolve and some people began to leave the Midnight Band and go with other groups. There weren't a lot of other groups you could go into that was like the Midnight Band. So it's like nobody, I wouldn't say nobody, but there wasn't a thrust of everybody that left went into a similar group. I did in the band that I continued leading the Song of Life Ensemble, which is, the group that I lead today. We've played some of the same material as the Midnight Band. And of course, we're getting ready to do a lot more because of the situation we're in now. We're seeing everybody's calling whatever concert they're doing a Gil Scott Heron tribute. Right. And I listen. Have any of them called you up to book you though? That's the question. No. Yeah. Not one of them. I haven't got a call from anybody. But my piano player, Mark Carey up in New York, for instance, he'll be playing with me when I get to New York. But the reason he won't play with me before I get to New York is because he's involved in a Gil Scott Heron tribute by Michelle and Digicello. Okay. And I don't understand why people do that. And I can understand that people want to give tribute to Gil, pay tribute to Gil, and like there's no law that says you can't pay tribute to Gil without doing such and such. But we're just trying to make it clear to people that we would like people to get in touch with us. Get in touch with the Midnight Band, but more so get in touch with the family. The children, Gil Scott Heron's children, they have formed the Gil Scott Heron Foundation. Okay. In which they're seeking to raise money and to work with youth who are influenced by Gil and hopefully have some annual tributes where money would be raised and distributed amongst young artists who are continuing the legacy. Okay. That Gil set in pace. Okay. Or the legacy that the Midnight Band set in pace. So that's what we're trying to do. So people can call tributes to Gil and do other stuff. But we're trying to do the same stuff that Gil did, and do the same stuff that we did as the Midnight Band. We're trying to reestablish that.
Well, he loved plenty women from Canada to Mexico. They would love to see him coming, and I hate it when he had to go. A macho man before macho ever came to town. Problem was not enough for him to go around. He had more romances than Ellie's got stars. He had more
got cars. He's a legend in his own mind, and God's a gift to women on a day God wasn't giving up a thing.
Some of the things that people maybe weren't aware that you all were even involved in, because it is what it is. You all seemed very clear on your mission as musicians, but me having the opportunity, of course, to know you personally, I would assume that you're a reflection of, you know, what most of you all were focusing on is just trying to take these concepts, these ideas of revolution, of just building as a community and making them practical, making them perceivable and tangible. What were some of the things that you all were doing outside of just playing the music?
Well, one of the things we were doing was the aspect of building schools, organizing and building summer camps, developing grocery stores, community-owned and managed grocery stores, and along with the music, developing business entities within the music.
So that you all could control the way things were run much better than being under the foot of the industry, shall we say.
Right. And we were very much involved in establishing forums through the music that I guess the revolution, at one point it's popular, and at another point it's not so popular. When it ceases to be popular, we would still be instrumental in having a type of form by having a concert and having workshops along with the concert. Of continuing those revolutionary forms in the community. For instance, our workshops would be on literary, dealing with poetry, spoken word, but in terms of its value in the community, not just to talk about how to develop a good style of writing, but how to make your writing relevant to your community. And the same with music. And we would do workshops on contemporary music, but we would do also workshops on the griot tradition. So we would be able to show people how, what we're doing, it may seem like novel and new to you, but it's centuries old. It follows a tradition that's that's more than 1,000 years old.
That's never been broken. Right. Okay.
And we would also do workshops on community development and voter education. And this is what we intend to do with the tributes to Gil Scott Heron that we will establish as the Midnight Band and the Family. Also another group of musicians, the Amnesia Express, which is another group of band that Gil had developed in his later years.
Right.
The Amnesia Express and the Midnight Band, in conjunction with the Family, will be doing, hopes to be doing these type of workshops and include, community development education, voter registration, and voter education. And when we're dealing with voter education, we're not just dealing with voter education so you can vote Democrat or Republican. Voter education is to teach people the importance of having an independent vote, having an internationally supervised vote, having a United Nations supervised vote, so that we can vote on some issues that are directly relevant to us as a people, and not always be caught up in, get away from being caught up in, voting for Tweedledee or Tweedledum.
Right, and blind allegiances.
Right.
Yes.
But, develop an allegiance to ourselves and understand that voting process and how other people have used it in the world, and to advance their standing and advance their liberation struggle. That's how we need to do that same thing. And so that's one of the things that we'll be establishing for those who are just interested in on the surface level, but the other workshops for people who are interested in what we were doing on a deeper level.
Very powerful. I want to kind of leave with two questions. First one just being that, now here you are, the elder statesman over this next generation of musicians coming into play. What things would you like to share that you would say, hey, these were the things that we did back then that I probably would have, maybe looked at a little bit differently, with the wisdom that I have now, and just how are you seeing your own mission with the group, and even as an individual, has it morphed and grown, and what are some of the new things that you see kind of being your focus in as far as what you're trying to present to the people?
I'd say the issue of business is one thing that I would always emphasize to young people, because a lot of times you can get trapped up into just wanting to be in a band or just wanting to travel, and people will make money off of you, or you won't take care of business. You won't make sure you copyright a song before you play it and record it, or before you let a lot of people hear it. Because the way the law goes, the law don't go by what's right.
That's right.
Goes, if somebody takes your song, if they copyright it before you copyright it, that's what the courts look at as proof. Who copyrighted it first? Unless you can prove you wrote it, you're out of luck. And that's how it went for black musicians and black composers for a long time. So one of the things that I see going on now more, but I would emphasize that it needs to be done more, is people need to have your stuff copyrighted. Even publish it yourself. Establish your own publishing firms and publish your music yourself. So when it's licensed, the money comes to you. A lot of people let the record company create their own, use the record company's publishing company, and the money will go to the record company. The money goes to whoever does the paperwork for it. So it's a matter of doing your own paperwork. If you write a song, fill out the forms. Join an association, a composers association. And even if you don't join, it's best to join one, because they track your they listen to the radio and listen to television, listen to the movies, and they track your music. If you're a member of ASCAP or you're a member of BMI, they'll track your music, and they'll know when it's in. They'll know how much is owed to you. If you're not a member, and your music is not registered, well, then you don't have no way of getting paid for it. And so that's one of the main things that I would say. And also, today it's much different than when we were growing up and people, and say produce your own record, because now the tools are so handy. You got different things like Band in the Box, Pro Tools.
What would you, not to cut you off, what would be your view on using those tools without the fundamentals? Because I find that a lot of musicians nowadays pay a couple of $1,000s for a computer and software and are literally winning Grammy Awards. you know, how key are the fundamentals?
The fundamentals are they're like I said, they're fundamental.
They're fundamental, yeah.
If you don't really know, if you don't really study scales and chord progressions, and you don't really know them, then you're not going to employ them in your music, no matter what kind of tool you use to get your music in the form. If you don't have a clear understanding of the various harmonic forms that can be used, your music is going to sound like it. It's going to suffer from it. Now, what can be done is that they can embellish certain things and make it, your music may not have that, but they'll make it loud in a certain place to emphasize whatever you got, They can you can tweak it with the technology.
Right, in an artificial manner.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's still like, if you know music, you can your music is going to come out a lot better. And if you know music, your music is going to come a lot better as you apply the tunes, because you're thinking of, when does this chorus end, or when does this 4-bar phrase end, rather than just saying, like you may have a phrase da 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 da, and you say, well, 4 of them, rather than knowing how many bars it is, and,
exactly,
and saying how many bars it is in a universal way where everybody can hear it and understand it. And to study music is important, because with the new technology and people not knowing, people come up with different terminologies, and they change the definition of what, for instance, what
like
a beat is.
I knew you were going to say that.
Right, right then, beat.
Yes,
people say,
it's not what it is now.
Yeah, it means something different. But if you're studying music, beat's going to mean the same thing.
Right.
So it means something different to the people who ain't studied.
Yes.
Than it does to the people who study.
And even the term producer.
Right, and producer could be anything.
Yes.
Like I seen my wife showed me a card that said, "Oh, this is a concert that our son Changa is producing." So I said, "Wow, I need to see Changa and ask him what is he doing," because people use the term producer, and I know that I've in terms of live music, I've been a concert producer in terms of I've been the one to organize the sound coming in, the lights coming in, the crews coming in, and that's producing the concert. And the person who gets the talent is called the promoter. A lot of times people who are promoters are called producers, just by people who get the terms mixed up or never learn actually what the term is. But that's traditionally what it's been. The producer is the one who gets the house and gets the equipment and hooks it up, and the promoter is the one who gets the talent to use the house and the equipment.
And is it more than just a semantics issue? Because some folks from my generation may be like, well, man, what does it really matter? Break it down from the stance of why is it important to know the distinction?
It's important to know the distinction, because if somebody asks you who produced this, and you tell them who promoted it, they know right away that you don't know you don't know what you're talking about. It will affect the way people think about you. They may not say nothing to you.
Yeah.
But you say, oh yeah, well he's talking that uneducated form of talking about the business. So and so when people look at you like that, then they bring less things to you, and they seek to get less things from you. So you may have a lot to offer, but if people don't expect it from you because of your language, you lose out a lot. So that's along with studying the business, and when you study the business, you'll study those definitions of what different jobs in the business mean. Once you've studied and once you've done the things and learned them, you know exactly what you want. When you want something, when you want a producer. You know when you need a promoter.
Yeah.
You know when you need a producer.
Right.
Yeah.
And you would know the value of it as well too.
Right.
Gotcha.
Stand by me. It's not so easy to be free. It's not so easy to be free. It's not so easy to be free. Nobody ever said it would be easy. Sometimes I feel like I'm just wasting my time, looking for another side. Sometimes I feel like I'm just losing my mind, 'cause there ain't no other side.
Well, I want to leave with, I think it's a very necessary question, because I heard a discussion recently, and it's a discussion where what was yielded was what I typically hear from people, which was two individuals were just kind of talking about the significance of not only what you all were doing as a collective, but specifically, of course, who Gil Scott Heron was to them. And it boiled down to just one of those same old cliche answers of, that brother wasn't nothing but just a drug addict, okay? What do you feel people really need to know and understand about Gil that they're just missing, and that, they don't seem to really piece together with just all of what you all were going through, all of what you all were doing, and what you all were trying to convey? What and maybe there's not just a single answer for that, but just for this younger generation, shall we say, that didn't get a chance to see all of this happen in real time, and they're going back now and seeing it in retrospect, what would you say they at least need to understand about not only what, Gil was dealing with as an individual, but what you all were just dealing with collectively, so that they can truly understand and respect the work that you all have done?
Well, I'd say it's important to study revolution, and if you study revolution, then you'll get a better sense of what revolutionaries are doing. And if you in terms of interpreting, when you interpret the aspirations of the people, it's because you're in touch with the people, and being in touch with them in two ways: that you know the people, and you relate to the people, and you feel their pain. You feel what they feel. More so than I say the artist does, more so than the average person. The artist feels the pain of the community more so than the garbage collector, even though he's dealing with the pain of the community.
Right.
He may be picking up trash off the street because people are too stupid to put it in the can.
Right.
So he's dealing with the pain of the community. But the artist who sees it there and is compelled to say something about it artistically, so that a word is put on the mind of the people who are doing the activity to correct their activity. That's feeling it on another level.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and so when you feel it on another level, that's when people will say they get high because of that. Because of that, feeling it on another level, being in touch with it on another level, and dealing with it, not just feeling it.
Yes.
Not just feeling it and saying, "Oh man, well let me get high so I don't think about it."
Right.
But feeling it and dealing with it, and when you deal with it, you make it like it could be a slight thing. Oh, there's something, and you just leave it alone. But if you go home and you deal with it, and you take that whole concept, whether it's abuse of women or abuse of men or abuse of children, or prostitution or throwing trash in the street, whatever ill it is, when you're dealing with it, it takes something special. It doesn't always take drugs, but it takes something. It takes something special. It may take meditation. It may take prayer. It may take prayer and meditation, and may take some drugs too, with certain people.
Yes.
So when people say that that somebody was just a drug addict, then they really need to find out more about that person's life, because nobody is just a drug addict.
Right, exactly.
Like you came
don't
on
just
earth
wake up and decide to do that.
Well, I'm going to be a drug addict. I'm not going to.
I'm going to be a professional.
I mean, everybody that's a drug addict. I mean, I dealt with drug counseling for a number of years.
Okay.
So I mean, everybody was somebody. Some of them were doctors. Some drug addicts were doctors. Some drug addicts were lawyers. Some drug addicts were
politicians, school teachers, yeah.
And everybody was something. I mean, I didn't have one client who was just a drug addict. So people who are of the opinion that anybody was just a drug addict, and therefore you can dismiss them. They really need to check. They really need to check out life more. And they should start by, checking out those things that I'm saying, the points of sensitivity, and how do you get to the point of sensitivity where you can absorb the pain and write something positive about it, and produce something positive about it, present it to the crowd to listen to, and get their feedback in the form of their response to you on your on-stage delivery, and which compounds the intensity with which you're dealing with it. And it's it'd be really a shame if they held on to that view, that somebody that there's such thing as just a drug addict. Or that would mean that because a person has used drugs, that would mean that their contribution to the community isn't valuable.
Right.
If that would be the case, man, I'm trying to think now, who would we revere? Who would we
dismiss
revere?
A lot of people.
Yeah, who would we revere as great artists?
You'd have to dismiss a lot of people.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of somebody right now. I'm 63 years old, and I'm trying to think of somebody that I've met. Because most cats, I mean, even if they're not using, they have used. And so you can't separate what they've done from what. But
there's also some of those poisons that aren't as visible. You see, And so you have people that may self-annihilate themselves in a way that you are not even actually able to track and trace.
Right.
So is that person off the hook, or better yet, are they under the same scrutiny just because,
Yeah, well, people...
We're dealing with life
because of... it's a form of self-hatred that a person would say... a pharmaceutical drug with a name that you can't pronounce and that you don't know what, and you don't really know what its value is better for you than a street drug that you've had experience with and you may not have studied about it, but you've had the direct experience with, and you know the value, and you can say you can have a direct experience with a drug over the corner and have direct experience with a drug over the counter and find that the drug over the counter is better for you.
And it might actually be made from the same components. Might be a couple of molecules off.
Right. And often that's what it is.
That's right.
Yeah. And they add, they keep that sugar in it because sugar is addictive. I mean, one thing that happened to me, I was at Grady Hospital, and doctors put a clonidine patch on my chest and said that I needed to not move it within 72 hours. If I moved before 72 hours, there was a possibility that I would die. I have high blood pressure right now. I never had high blood pressure before this particular visit to Grady Hospital, but I have high blood pressure right now. And if I find that when I smoke a joint and read my pressure, that it's just as cool or even cooler than when I take this other stuff that I can't pronounce and read my pressure.
Yeah.
Well, I know that the one that I can't pronounce, I know when I read in the physician's reference desk that when it tells you what's good about it, they always have a list of
side effects.
Which is larger
than the benefits.
The component where you read the side effects is larger than what you read and what it does. Yeah, what the benefits are, what it does for you. So the whole thing of saying somebody is an addict because they use something or because you don't understand why they use it, or you disagree why they use it, or you may use it for you may have no particular reason why you use a certain thing, and because you don't have a reason for the reason why you use it, you condemn somebody else.
Right. The frame of reference is different. Yeah, interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Quite a profound way to answer that question, Papa, and definitely just a testament, of course, to the lifelong lessons that anyone who's listened to, the Midnight Band, listen to Gil Scott Heron and company will get, is that you all are very sincere and bring forth, just what the people can relate with, and with that being said, I just want to close out with asking, when shall we expect to see some of these new ventures come into play? I know you all are in the working stages, but, when can the listeners expect to see the band roll through their town? Are we hoping to get something done within this year here?
Well, we hope that by April 1st, 2012, which is Gil's birthday.
Yes.
Gil's next birthday.
Yes.
That we will be presenting something in the New York area as well as in the London area.
Okay.
And that'll be the start of it, and we will be announcing it. I'll get information to you in a few weeks so that you can add that information to the interview.
Right on.
Concerning the the reunion of the Midnight Band and the reunion of the Amnesia Express.
Yes, indeed.
And the organization and forward motion of Gil Scott Heron's family.
That's what's up. Definitely. We're very, very much, anticipated. And, Baba, we, just definitely want to say give thanks to you for honoring your gifts, and also providing us this interview this evening. So, once again, we've been speaking with our guest, the one and only Bilal Sunni Ali, who will be, God willing, showing up in a town near you very soon. And, any maybe just last words that you'd like to close out with, Baba?
I'd say now more than ever, all the family must be together. Every brother everywhere feels the time is in the air. Common blood flows through common veins, and the common eye all sees the same. Now, more than ever, all the family must be together.
This concludes this exclusive edition of Rhythm United, dedicated to the late, great, and always up-to-date Gil Scott Heron. Peace.
Yes, you'd like to go home. Mama could change it, Daddy could fix it. Yes, if you could go home.